Hello, I'm Vicky from Social Work Sorted, which is an online platform of resources for newly qualified social workers and students. I'm a social worker, previously a child protection conference chair, and I lead Social Work Sorted. I create resources for you to support you in practice. I have a course, Introduction to Assessment, which is a comprehensive guide through completing a child and family assessment, which, if you are a social worker working with children in England, it's very likely you will be doing. Sometimes they're called CAFAs, sometimes they're called CNFs. It's a child and family assessment under Section 17 of the Children Act. And this series is all about assessments. I'm going to support you through or take you through the steps that you may have to go through if you are undertaking an assessment as a children's social worker. And I want to start with referrals. So what is a referral? A referral is a piece of information. It is the sharing of information from one person to another, but it's not just an exchange. Usually when we're talking about referrals in the context of social care, it is somebody sharing a piece of information with the local authority children's social care service. So they are either filling in a referral form online or they're ringing up and making that referral. They might be ringing a social worker directly if that family or child is open to a social worker, or they might be ringing through to a generic number. This is often called a multi-agency safeguarding hub or a front door team. These are people that are some social workers, some social work assistants who listen to or read through the referral information and make a decision about whether the referral needs to be sent to an early help service or whether it needs to be sent to children's social care team for either an assessment under Section 17 or an assessment under Section 47. I want to talk about referrals and the word referral because when you're in a children's social care team, it becomes a word that you use a lot. You become familiar with it. But families and children, young people, might not necessarily be familiar with the word referral. So if you ring somebody up and you say, we've had a referral, it's quite strange to say if that's not a word that you're used to hearing. This isn't about people's capacity to understand. I'm talking about the idea that if you're not using a particular word or phrase every day, it can kind of startle you. You can kind of be took back by it because you're not used to that. So it's so important to explain to people what a referral is. It's a piece of information. In its simplest form, somebody has told us something about you and your family. And that might seem really obvious to you, but actually when somebody is getting a phone call from a social worker, they're scared, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to say, you need to put this in the simplest form possible because most of us find it very difficult to take in verbal information, particularly when we are under stress or when we have been surprised or shocked by a particular piece of information. So think about how you are going to explain the word referral when you get a referral through. When you are reading a referral, so you'll either be reading something directly written by somebody, so it might be written by a police officer who's made a report or a teacher who's sharing some information, or it might be verbatim, so somebody might have called up and then the person on the phone has then written down what they have said. When you are reading that referral, it's really important to think about a few things. Who has that referral come from? Has it come from somebody who has seen a child? Is it somebody who has interacted with that child once? Is it somebody who knows that child well or doesn't know that child well? Is it from a family member? The person who has put this referral in will have a particular perspective, and it is helpful for you to consider that. The next thing to look at is the language in the referral. Is it loaded? Because this is the first step of our interaction with a child and their family. And sometimes we rush through this without thinking about it, and it's easy to do when you're in a busy team. But that referral might be loaded with language. It might say, I've had referrals before that say, mum was difficult when we spoke to her about this. So immediately, because that person who's completed the referral has used the word difficult, in your head, you now have that word difficult attached to this mum. In the same way, you might have a referral which says something about a child's challenging behaviour. I don't know, there's sometimes the words that are used, or it might be hard to engage, you know, some of the language that is used within different professions. Again, that will influence the way that you then go on to read any further information. If you don't stop and almost try and filter through those descriptive words. If you've got something printed out, you can even do, and this is really helpful to do if you're newly qualified and you're just starting to get allocated children and families to work with, go through the referrals and circle any pieces of, any words, any pieces of information, any phrases that actually are underlying judgment and maybe discriminate against that person and maybe loaded because of the perspective of the individual that is referring. The next thing to think about when you have a referral through is what information do you already have? So you will be able to go on your online database and look at the information connected to the child and the family that you already have available to you. Again, you need to filter through that information because it might be loaded. There might be the attached perspective of a previous social worker, but it's so important to look at what you already have. Look for patterns, look to see if there's a chronology, look to see if there have been previous assessments that you can read through and try and gain some understanding of a family setup. It can be a really good idea then to draw out a genogram. It doesn't have to be anything neat and tidy, but I'm quite a visual person, so I like to see how people are connected. So you can begin to draw out how people are connected within a family system. You might then, when you go out on your home visit, have something and say, I was trying to make sense of how everybody was related and connected to each other. And this might look a bit messy, but again, you can say, I'm quite visual, I like to look at things, and I wonder if you could help me understand who these people are, because we've got different names and different dates of birth, so it can be something that you then work on. When you are reading through that information, whilst looking at what you have, it's important to assess what you don't have, what is missing, what are the gaps in information that you need to know. So it might be that dates of birth and ages and names and name spelling don't add up, or they're not the same, they're different across different documents. There might be a particular gap in understanding who somebody is within that system and how they're connected. There might be a period of time where there has been, a big gap in social care involvement. To me, that would be interesting because it would suggest possibly that something positive was happening. It would suggest maybe a period of change. It suggests, something was different. What was different and why? So even if you have a limited amount of time, which quite often you do when you are first allocated a child or family to work with, you can use the limited time that you have to start taking note of things. And also by looking for that further information, it means that you might save a family member from having to repeat something to you over again, which they might have already told somebody else, particularly if that information is difficult for them to share, because that can be really taxing and there can be a lot of emotional labour for families feeling like they're repeating information again and again. There are a couple of things that you can do when you initially get a referral. So think about, what does referral actually mean? How are you going to explain the nature of the referral? How loaded is this referral? Who has it come from? Where is the information sourced from? And what information do you already have? And then what information do you need to know? How are people connected within the family system? Can you write it down? Can you do something visual? And all these things can take place before you make contact with a child or a family. If this was helpful, please let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, then you can add them in as well, or if there's any videos that you want me to create that would be useful for you, let me know in the comments as well. Make sure you subscribe. You can share this video with anyone that might find it helpful. And if you are interested in help with completing child and family assessments, in building up your confidence, in saving time, reducing your stress, going into home visits, knowing what you are doing, having questions that you can ask, having a supportive document alongside you when you are writing up assessments, then my Introduction to Assessment Guide will be perfect for you. Again, all the details will be in the notes. Thank you so much for watching and take care.